Time is Running Out, a short story by J.R. Foxwell, read by the author, and available at jrfoxwell.wordpress.com. Time is running out. That was the last thing she said to me. Strange how the little coincidences in life can make you feel like some kind of force is pulling strings. It was the end of a beautiful day, and we were sitting on the wild grasses where the cliffs become a point, jutting out into the sea. The dusk light filled her hair with strokes of warm yellows, and her sunburnt cheeks were washed with gold. I shall never forget her eyes, not searching my face or welling with deep emotion, but somehow at one with the silence we shared. I felt they were as deep as the sea itself. In those eyes was the freedom of the wind. I embraced her, and together we bathed in deep magentas under pink skies. I think I must have drifted off to sleep because the next thing I remember she was sitting up watching the sun finally surrender to the sea. I leant up on my elbow, and then she turned to me. "Time is running out," she said in her softly spoken voice, and then she kissed me on the forehead as sweetly as an angel, stood up, and left. I smiled at her as she went, drew a long deep breath of the goodness that was in the air, before rolling onto my back, my arms flung wide, as though I were floating on euphoria. I had to be in Geneva on Friday, and I knew I was never coming back. I reminded myself every day as I woke up to enjoy it while it lasted, for I would be gone on Friday. I counted the hours until I'd have to leave, but somehow this morning ritual allowed me to be part of something. When it was over, I could be free to enjoy the moment just as it was. I let go of everything and drank it all in. I can put my life back together in Geneva, I thought. As I lay there in the spongy cliff-top grasses, I knew she understood. How perfect, I thought. She understands perfectly. We had 2 more days together, and they were going to be perfect with no difficulties. I began to move and comfortably locked my hands behind my head. That was when I realized that there was something robbing my contentment. I rustled around a little, thinking I must have just been lying on a stone, but still I could feel my joy leaking little by little. In the end, I stood up, thinking that the walk home would clear my head. As I walked, it came to me. Something about the way she said it, something in the tone of it. Time is running out. Somehow it was lacking in fondness, as though all her fondness for me was in the kiss she gave me straight afterwards. But if the running out of time was not about us, what was it about? The more I recalled the memory, the more my imagination played with it. By the time I was home and showered, I had scruples she might be involved in some kind of doomsday sect, a witch of some kind perhaps. Well, it certainly fitted with her ethereal personality and her wild spirit. It didn't bother me if she was. But now we'd have to have those awkward goodbyes I was so happy weren't going to be on the cards. When I awoke the next morning, I had a fresh wind. After my ritual, I was excited about the next few days. I had a craving for fresh pain au chocolat and croissants with apricot jam. I'll surprise her, I thought. I was out of my room in moments, strolling up the street, letting my nose lead me to the nearest bakery. She had a large green door with an ivy green knocker. Whenever I arrived, I always enjoyed knocking that big green knocker. Perhaps it was the excitement of seeing her and simply association, or perhaps the green on the cream was somehow cleansing. I reached the door, baked goods in hand. But as I reached up to the knocker, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. My pulse quickened a little, and my face was stolen by a grin. Who wouldn't enjoy being awoken by the smell of fresh pastry, I thought. I'll surprise her. Something told me she was the kind of girl who liked surprises. I creeped up the stairs with single-minded determination that she'd be woken by the smell of pastries alone and not by the creaking of boards. I can't say I didn't enjoy a brief flirtation with fantasies of espionage as I carefully made my journey. But in the end, the whole enterprise was quickly deflated. There was no sign of her. I caught a mantelpiece clock in the corner of my eye. It was certainly early, and she'd always complained about my waking her in the mornings. The house was a mess, clothes on the floor or strewn over furniture, dishes unwashed. She must have rushed out, I thought, what with the jaw being left ajar. I chuckled at the thought that perhaps she had the same idea as me, and was right at this moment knocking on my hotel room door, wondering how long she'd be prepared to wait before devouring the croissants herself. That was when I realized how hungry I was. As I walked to the door with half a pastry in my mouth, I pushed it out. As it slowly swung, the morning light lit up the hallway. Her satchel was hanging from a coat hook. I smiled as I walked out and back the way I'd came. She must be at the baker's, I thought. She never leaves without her satchel. But it wasn't long before my enthusiasm began to wane. She was neither at my hotel or at the bakery. I even went back to hers in case we'd missed each other. That was when I noticed that her long woolen coat was missing. So I searched the cliff-top walks that she'd been taking me on, and I inquired with villagers. By late afternoon, I was in a complete panic. I decided it was time to collect a search party. I was, however, hopeful that the villagers would help me. They'd been very hospitable towards me during my stay. I don't think they had many visitors. But I was shocked by their responses, one after the other. "Oh, Mr. Francis, don't worry about that. She'll be back." As though it happened all the time. After what must have been my 5th attempt, I inquired further. "Why is no one disturbed by this? I've talked with everyone, and they all think I'm a loon." "Well, Mr. Francis, there's been no storm, no winds to speak of. I'm sure she'll be back." "But what if she's been kidnapped, or—" My mouth dried up. "Oh, Mr. Francis, that kind of thing doesn't happen around here. Best be back to your hotel with a cup of tea, and don't worry, I'm sure she'll see you tomorrow." Perplexed and distraught, I took the old man's advice. When I got to my room, I went straight to the bathroom to freshen my face. I looked up to see my reflection in the mirror. My face was haggard and grey. Yes, here it was, the old face I remember. "I knew you'd come back," I said to it. Then I noticed a little blood in the corner of my mouth. I touched my lip with my finger, and blood came off on it. I'd been biting my lip again. Then it occurred to me that I'd spent the whole day in the kind of stress I spent every day back in Geneva. It's no surprise my habit of biting the inside of my bottom lip had resurfaced, and no surprise that my sun-washed face could not hide my grey expression.